Hey, welcome back to Atheist Podcast. So in this episode, this is the time when Erin and I are going to reflect back on our first theme, which is awe. And we're going to reflect back on what we've learned about awe from Dr. Keltner and the book Awe, and also our interview with Belden Lane. So if you haven't listened to the interview with Belden, I would say go back, take a listen to that. It's awesome. And then come on back here and hear our reflections.
Welcome to the Atheist Podcast. I'm Erin.
And I'm Kelley. Atheist is where we will explore American cultural trends through the lenses of a devout theist
And a devout atheist. We will discuss the messiness of being human.
The latest in social science, psychology, and American culture.
And what any of it has to do with Homo sapiens' longtime preoccupation with religion. So Belden.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Right?
Yep.
Like probably one of the most important or moving conversations I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, I was crying.
Yeah, you were. You were full on crying.
Full on crying, the tears, all the tears.
I looked over at you and I was like, oh,
I know.
I'm not going to rely on Erin to talk right now.
Yeah. I could barely get my myself together.
What was it that moved you so much about his stories?
Well, I mean, obviously what happened with his son, you know, and the part that, I mean, you know, as a parent, you just think about losing a child is the thing that everybody's afraid of, right? And even when your child is an adult who's, you know, and then the layer of his granddaughter, you know, it hurt my heart. Yeah. And then there was a moment where he talked about his granddaughter in the hollow of grandfather singing "You Are My Sunshine."
Yes.
And that's a song that I sing to my kids when I put them to bed.
Aww.
And so just the whole combination of parenthood, the loss of a child, and then, you know, his granddaughter singing the same song that I sing to my own kids. It was too much.
Yeah. There's Frederick Buechner is one of my favorite writers, teachers, theologians, and he just passed this, I think just this last year. But one of the things that he says, and I'm not going to get this quote exactly, but he says, pay attention to things that bring a tear to your eye and a lump in your throat, for then you know the holy is drawing near. And that's what I saw when I looked over you. I was like, oh. And you could feel it, couldn't you?
Yeah.
When he told the story, it was like the entire energy of the room just changed. And it just felt like this holiness. Like, you know, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah. And that goes to a theme that I had written about in my Substack and reflecting on the episode in that conversation, which is about the power of attention and where we give our attention, and that it's how we show love, you know? So yes, that quote is fitting.
Yeah. So in these kind of final episodes of our little theme package, right? So Erin and I are just going to reflect on kind of what we learned from this little mini deep dive into awe. And so you started and we both have Substacks, so we're going to kind of write about them in our Substacks. But so you talked about primarily attention and what that means about awe.
Yeah, that you can find it in. I think sometimes we hear the word awe and we think, oh, it has to be this big thing. Right. This, I don't know, life-changing, which sure, you know, that can be the case. But I think more often than not, and this is, I think, what Dr. Keltner is trying to say, is that if you can actually pay attention, it's the small things that will bring awe to your life in an everyday sort of way.
Yeah.
That it's not this grandiose sort of, I have to go to the desert. I know we talked about going to the desert, but that's not something you have to do to experience it if you're paying attention.
Yeah. Well, funny enough, we wrote these separately, but I too also wrote about paying attention. This is also, we're recording this during Easter weekend. So it's the end of for me, a Lenten season and looking towards tomorrow, which is Easter. So I've been definitely in a place where I'm like, I'm ready for resurrection. Like I'm done with Lent. I'm done with the darkness. And awe has really, thinking about awe in these last 6-8 weeks has been really, really buoying for me, has buoyed me. And I think that idea for me of awe is kind of really closely linked to that idea of resurrection or rebirth. And that idea that Keltner talks about, that awe bringing us out of our default self, out of a false self or a narcissistic self or, kind of a first half of life self into this new thing. And each of those 8 ways that he identifies that we experience awe, I kind of have been thinking about those as almost like threshold moments. And like you said, like those threshold moments are everywhere all the time. And all we have to do is kind of just walk through them. And we're another person when we come out.
Yeah. Yeah. That was the other thing that I sort of was writing about in terms of that transformation, but that if you can really attend to something in a way that allows you to experience awe in that moment, and maybe you carry it beyond that moment, but it is the dissolving of the ego.
Yep.
And so your phrasing of the first half of life, right? Where you're constructing it to leap off the tower, right? Was the thing that we discussed. But it is that it's in those moments when your ego goes away and you sort of just become in the space in that time, and you can be really fully present and attentive. Those are moments that are transformational.
Yeah. Yep. Completely. And I also think it's really interesting, and I'm gonna jump to some Jesus stuff here since again it's Easter, but Jesus, Las Vegas. I think it's really interesting that the number one way we experience awe, according to Keltner and his research, is in observing other people in courageous acts of love and resilience, right? And to me, when I think about what Jesus is really about and what he stands for, at the root of what it is about teaching us to be loving, to teach us to bear one another's suffering, to teach us to forgive. Yeah. And these are the stories. And so for the first time, it really occurred to me that these are not the teachings because they're necessarily the best thing for the doer. Like for me to forgive is a good thing for me, but it's also a good thing for you to witness me forgive.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Because that changes you.
Yeah.
So it's not about just like us in our individual little lives going about just doing the best that we can. It's also we're doing the best we can for the good of everybody around us. Yeah. To be able to witness, and that I can witness you doing amazing things, and you can witness me doing amazing things.
That's taking the individual acts, and it becomes a collective. And that is small things often, which is we've talked about that. But the best way to sustain any relationship, right, is the paying attention to the small things, doing the small things every single day. One of my bosses was talking about this the other day. He said somebody asked him. He's been married, I don't know, over 20 years. Someone asked him, "How is it that you've been able to be married for so long?" And he said, "Well," or they asked him, "How do you know that you're going to be married 20 years from now?" Or something to that effect. And he said, "I don't. I know that I'm married today, and so I'm going to do the things that are necessary today, so to be married tomorrow.
Yeah.
And if I do that every day, then 20 years from now, I probably have a pretty good shot of being married."
Yeah. 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 And all of those things, those choices that we have every day, to pay attention to the song that's on the radio, right? And be moved by it, or, take a deeper look into a piece of art that somebody creates, or our child brings to us. Even doesn't have to be a great artist, right? Taking a walk, looking at the woods, feeling the wind. I do feel like these moments that we're invited to awe, and I'm going to say awe and renewal or resurrection out of that default self. Like, we are never the same. And like, I wonder, like, atomically how we actually change.
Yeah.
Because I think we do, it's
on a cellular level.
On a
you're
cellular,
changing.
that dip your toe into, you can never, dip your toe into the same river twice. Aphorism. But I remember, and I wonder if you've had this experience when you were younger. I remember having experiences, when you're a young person in your 20s and, teens and 20s, and you're kind of trying to cultivate your individual self, and you have an experience and you kind of go, oh, because that happened, I'm actually never going to be like my parents.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that it ever happened to me about my parents.
Yeah.
Because I was always kind of,
You kind of dug being.
Yeah. I mean, it would be okay. That would be okay.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, there were definitely moments when I was developing the ego, so to speak, right? That like sense of self, where I knew I'm trying to think. I mean, there were moments when I was like, oh, this is, and then I think immediately about just like, okay, realizing that I'm gay, right?
Yeah.
So being in, like, having, it's like I went on my first date when I was in 7th grade or something like that. And, dated boys in high school. And then late high school, had my first relationship, gay relationship. And then at that moment, it was like, oh, this is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And so something fundamentally shifts, right? Yeah. And I think that's what I mean. And I don't mean like, oh, I have this experience and now, thank God, I'm never going to be like my parents. I mean, I'm sure I definitely thought that at some points, as a young person, but just the fact that there was a kind of core understanding that my life is mine to create, and that it's not dependent upon, that I really am kind of floating in the universe. And
my parents would tell a story about, I don't know how old I was exactly. I was like in elementary school, but they said that one day I said, Mom, Dad, can I live with you forever? And they were like, of course. And then they said that was the last day that I came home. That I just, like, from that point forward, it was just like, okay, I just need to know that you, like, have my back,
that you're going to be there.
And I'm out. And then I was just kind of out in the world and
like playing kick the can with kids after school.
Whatever. Like, and I was
shows
always
you
just
how old I am.
Out and about, you know, was just kind of the way that I was. I really never, I mean, I knew, like, the gay part, right? I knew, okay, well, this life that my parents live, it's not, whatever that life is not going to be this life. at the time, I didn't really know would that mean that it would involve having children or not. I didn't really know at that point. Some gay people had kids, but not everybody.
Yep. And it wasn't legal to be married.
No, actually, my senior year of high school, the state of Missouri, passed that piece of legislation, or it wasn't legislation; it was a vote to amend the state constitution so that marriage was between a man and a woman. And so I was like, oh, Missouri, this place is not great.
I might have to move.
Yeah, and it's all worked out fine. But it was that was a blow.
Yeah.
That was a blow. And I remember I have a distinct memory of that.
Of that day?
Yeah,
I bet. Whereas, that doesn't. I
Other people
I don't
would
even
not
know
have a
that
distinct-
that even happened.
Yeah, I was at the Washington Town and Country Fair. That was where that's a big thing. It's like a week long. I think Nelly might be is like the musical act this year. It's like, so they get, usually people past their prime, but pretty big name musical acts to be the headliners on Saturday. And I mean, it is the thing. Tractor pull.
Nice.
Like livestock.
Who has the biggest pig?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Lots of rides. Bad food.
Nice. Do you take the kids?
We have, yeah. It's actually pretty fun.
I bet.
Yeah,
I'd go. You can invite me next year.
We'll go see Nelly.
Yeah, 100%. What else? What else struck you through this kind of these conversations? Anything else that you'll kind of take away with you?
I think Belden, he is somebody, and it's somebody that you aspire to be like. There are times where you get to be in the presence of somebody who you just are like, man, I wish I could be more like that. He's so genuine, open-hearted, kind, thoughtful. The ego is not there, even though he's a man who's incredibly impressive and accomplished and has done amazing things. He's just there, there to connect with the people around him and be attentive to the people around him. And that's something that, I want to be more like him.
Yeah. Me too. The story that he told about his son and being out, in the wilderness, I just felt like, to me, again, I'm back to Easter, but to me, that was like the consummate Easter story, right? Mm-hmm. And just that idea this idea of awe in nature happens all the time and all around us. In the story of the spider and the student,
it's really good.
And that there's this promise of new life all over the place, and what like you started with, kind of what I wrote most about was just this idea of attentiveness, that in order to move through these thresholds, these moments of awe, we have to really just be attentive. And I thought it was interesting, when people are in states of overwhelm or anxiety, panic, I thought it was interesting, the thing that we do to snap them out of that is to say, pay attention, right? So one of those look at five, what are the 5 things you see around you? What are the 4 things that you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, 1 thing you can taste? And that by asking people that when they're in this state of overwhelm is kind of asking them to kind of come back here to this space, moment. To this moment, and kind of join us in this general dance of life. Yeah. Where things can happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's when you get all fucked up in your head, is when you get way out ahead of where you are, or, imagining, you just spend all this time imagining. Yeah. And when you do that, which is, it's the thing that humans do, but it's not very good for you.
No.
And you're much better served to just be hey, let's just be here in this moment,
Yep.
experience it as it's happening, because you don't even know what you are going to encounter. If it is going to be like that or not, it's probably not even going to be that whatever you're imagining it's
Right.
going to be. And so I don't know, people get all bent around the axle about stuff that it's just like, it's just not even, who knows? Who knows?
Is that a like a little Washington aphorism?
Yeah.
Bent around the axle. All these little country terms are going to come out for you sometimes. I love it. Yeah, I just think, the idea of, I guess what I would hope that people would take away is that to be encouraged to be present in their lives and to look for not only the sunsets over the Lone Mesas, but to know that those sunsets are there, like Belden did, to make meaning of their life, and that they're more than just particles in the sky, making reflecting beautiful lights, but that there is meaning there, and that meaning is what brings us all kind of back to life. And I have another Buechner quote.
Okay, let's end with
You
that.
want to end with the Buechner quote? So he wrote a book. He wrote a memoir called Listening to Your Life.
It's a nice title.
Yeah. So here's the quote. Listen to your life. See it for the fathomless mystery it is. In the boredom and pain of it, no less than in the excitement and gladness. Touch, taste, smell your way to the holy and hidden heart of it, because in the last analysis, all moments are key moments, and life itself is grace.
Dig it.
Dig it. Thanks, Erin.
Hey, thanks, Kelley. This is fun.
It was fun. Thank you for joining us as we explored awe. We hope the conversations were as meaningful for you as they were for us. A huge thank you to our listeners. Your support will help us keep this going with more topics, more guests, and more connections. The best way to support us is to subscribe, rate, comment, and share with a friend. Atheist is produced by Justin Seiwell and Trend Media Productions and can be found on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Our series about awe led us to our next topic. So join us next time as we explore the power of collective effervescence as it relates to community building, sports, and theater with two amazing guests. Thank you for listening, and keep looking for connection.